How do you know when to use a bunch of material instances or when to make your blueprints customizable in order to be able to not have to create a bunch of material instances? That is the question we are going to be answering today. What's going on, everybody? My name is Kevin. We are making a game, and these dev streams are a look behind the scenes. We try to make them a little bit more tutorial-like, and I will tackle challenges that are happening as we progress through the making of our game called the Rend. And we are actually tackling this problem right now where we are dealing with the choice between a bunch of material bloat or a bunch of asset bloat. And I think this is kind of a special case. So what I'm going to show you all today is how to set up an actor so that you can dynamically change all those material parameters, and then you have a choice as to whether or not you're using a material instance or you're using material instance dynamics along the way. And this is going to be specifically as it applies to some of our fog cards, but you'll be able to use this in your own work for any number of different actors depending on how your own game is set up. As always, thanks for checking out the stream. Thanks for Patreon being here to help keep me sane during these live streams. You'll hear them asking questions. It's part of the community that we're building here as we build out this game. And with that, let's get going because we have a lot to do and I have a lot of other stuff going on. So let's take a look at what we're looking at. Specifically, we have in this scene, we're setting up a new level, and this is going to be this is the front, not the front, what do you call it? This is the run up to our first encounter. Okay, and in the past, what we have done is you can see all these pillars and everything that we have in the background. We got our fog going, etc. And in the past, we have built it so that each of these actors can get placed in our scene. Now, the way this game is set up is we have a lot of different actors that get created, and we're kind of sculpting the lighting, so we make changes on an actor basis. However, I got to a point now where I want to change these background fog cards so that what's happening is we have our bright light here, and then I want it to fall off as it gets further away from the center, and I need to be able to control that. Now, generally, the way this works is if you look at it, this is just a plane. Okay, this is just a plane, and on the plane, we've added this material instance. So what I could do, and this is where the dilemma comes in, I could create a material instance for each of these planes as they get further and further away from the bright light center, which now means I'm dealing with asset bloat, and in a different way. So we're just moving where the problem is going to be. But basically, at that point, I'm going to have 5 or 10 material instances that are all kind of different. That is sort of counterintuitive to how a layout or a level artist might work, in the sense that I kind of just want to pick the plane I'm working on, and I want to be able to change those parameters. So that's what we're doing today. That is the problem that we're trying to solve, because we are sculpting this new environment, which I can show you here real quick. From here, as we play through, you can kind of see our fog in the background has no real fall off to it at this point. But as we get to the brighter spots, we want to kind of sculpt how that fog looks. Okay, so to do this, let's do a couple of things. I'm just making sure we didn't crash you all. Okay. First, we're going to create a new actor, and the actor that I want to create is I'm almost there. I'm short-circuiting a little bit today because on the account of being sick. Okay, so let's do this. I am going to put this actor in our environment blueprint folder. So let's just create this from scratch. We're going to call this new blueprint class. This is going to be an actor, and this is going to be our blueprint, and we're just going to call this I think we're gonna go fog card base, and whether or not you set it up as a broader category or not, I think is going to depend on the materials and the types of things that you would use. You can see here we have a visual base, we have a hero base. In this case, I'm going with a fog card base. We're using fog cards a lot. I think it's worth getting it into an actor that we can place and make changes to across all of them without having to update everything. So let's go fog card base on this one. But the point here is what we're going to be doing is setting up our material instances. So fog card base is very simple. And what it should have in it is just basically a plane. Okay, and I am going to rotate this, I believe, 90 degrees in X, let's just say. Yeah, that matches the current fog card, because we're going to replace this plane with our fog card. We're going to replace the plane with our fog card in the end. Okay, so we have the base. Now let's get our material assigned. Now the material that we have assigned to this is a material instance based off of our fog distance radial. So let's go ahead and assign this. And we already have what we need as far as being able to place this actor in the scene. We may need to at least check the scale of this thing. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll take this and let's just drop one of these in here. Ooh, that's not the right thing. We want this one. Let's drop this in here. I have a feeling it's going to be tiny. It's tiny. The scale, let's delete that. The scale of this is 100. So let's come back here and let's take our plane and we will start with a scale of 100 just to be in the same ballpark. Okay, well, let's save that. Let's take this and let's drop this in. Okay, so already we're matching. Looks pretty good. But what we want, the whole point of this little tutorial walkthrough, is to be able to dynamically change this material without having to create a whole bunch of new material instances for each of our fog cards. So to do that, let's go back to our blueprint and take a look at our material. If we look at our material instance, basically what we need to do is we need to do a couple things. First, we need to create variables for all of the controls that we want to be able to control in here. So, for example, we definitely need fog color and then all of these other controls as well. So I'm going to undock this actually just so that we can see it at the same time. And we're just going to start adding a bunch of variables. So over here on the left for our fog card base, let's go ahead and add. This is going to be, let's start with fog color. And I'm going to change the types on all of these in a minute. So we'll go fog color. This is going to be brightness. Then let's go, actually I am going to change this noise contrast. I spelled contrast wrong on that one in the material itself. So that was a no bueno, but that's okay. And then we need noise fade distance, noise size X. I'm pressing Control D, by the way, to do this quickly. Noise size Y, noise size Y.
Does the name of the variable in the blueprint need to match exactly the parameter in the material, or is that not something that you have to worry about just yet?
Very good question, and the answer is no, it technically does not have to, because when we go to set the parameter, one of the things that we pass in is the name of the parameter we're setting, so they could be decoupled. So if you didn't like the way the parameter was named and there was something that was more designer friendly, for example, you could change what is exposed here in the blueprint. Noise speed X, noise speed Y, and opacity. We're not gonna do all of them. We're just gonna get this may be a very quick tutorial because to a certain extent, this might be, there's only 2 left. Come on, we got this. Radial, fall off, density, and finally radial fall off radius. Okay, cool. So we got all our variables. these match. We can add in switches. We could even variabilize our textures. So we could do that per fall card. But the whole point of this tutorial is not necessarily for you to watch me set each of these little values painstakingly, but to actually get into the actual blueprint logic and work of this. So we have all our variables. We do need to make sure these are all able to be set in the level. So for example, when we look at this level, when we look at this actor, hold on, let's go back and compile and save this. You'll notice that none of those variables show up here as far as being able to set them in the details over on the right. That's because we have to remember we need to set these variables to be exposed on spawn and instance editable, for example. So the minute I do that, you'll notice that if I compile and save that, you'll notice that I now have fog color. Okay, now if we go back here, we could put this into a category for fog settings so that it's all there. And we do want to change this one specifically to a linear color. Linear color, I believe. We could also do a vector 3, but linear color. That way it's a color. All right, when we compile and save that, you'll notice now we have a fog settings section and a fog color that we can set. I am going to change the default value of this to be white, so we never confuse ourselves that, because sometimes that can make the plane completely invisible, and you'll think like, wait, why is it not working? But it's actually there, it's just invisible. Okay, so now that we have that, well, we do need to change our brightness to a float. And then let's go ahead and do the same thing here. Instance editable, expose on spawn. Now, shift clicking these doesn't always work, so we'll just do this quickly. Yeah, shift clicking does not work. Instance editable, expose on spawn. And then I should have been, while I was doing this, I should have also been changing this to fog settings so that they're all in the fog settings. That's also a nice little thing, so I know I've done that one, because it moves over into the section even here, so you can see that fog settings. And if I had done this on the first one, I wouldn't have to redo all of these like this. Okay, so instance editable, expose on spawn, fog settings, same thing, fog settings. Now, this is depending on how deep your materials are, how many parameters you have. This can be painful, especially once we get into the blueprint side of it. Okay, so we've got all those exposed on spawn, so we can set them. Now we need to use them, okay? However, there's a trick to this. And the trick is, the way Unreal Engine works is you can't just set texture values or material values and expect them to work, because Unreal tries to be smart about what can and cannot change. And in this particular case, these materials, when they first get created, you're not allowed to change them at runtime. They're hard set, so they're all the same, so it can reuse them. So if you want to make this dynamic and being able to be set, what we need to do is we need to basically get the material that is currently assigned to this plane, and we need to convert it to be a material instance dynamic instead of this just the static material instance. Now, usually you'll see people put this in the begin play. I like to put this in the construction script. Reason I'm putting it in the construction script is if it's in the construction script, then I can see the change in the editor, so I can sculpt it as I go. If you do it on begin play, you won't see the changes until after you start the game. So how does this work? We're going to get the plane, okay, and from the plane we're going to get the material. Now, when we get the material, it's worth noting whether or not we're using a plane right now. You might be using an actor that has more than one material. So for you to do this properly, you may have to get all of the materials and then loop through them with a for loop. But we don't have to worry about that because this plane only has one material. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we are going to basically from this material, we are going to create a material instance dynamic. Let's make sure. Create dynamic material instance. Okay, this is going to create it, and the target is going to be the plane. Okay, and the element ID stays 0 because we're using the material from 0. We may or may not change the optional name, but in this case we can just leave this blank. And then what we're going to do is we are going to set the material. So what we need to do is take this plane. So we've created this material instance, but it's not assigned to anything. It's not doing anything yet. So what we need to do is we need to take the plane and we need to set the material. And the material that we're going to set is slot 0. And we're going to set it to be our newly created material instance dynamic. Okay, so all this does is take the current material, convert it to a material instance dynamic, and then we're going to assign it as our base material. And then at that point, that's almost all the work. Okay, so at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to set our values. So let's do a quick test just to confirm that we're set up properly. So with this value, we're going to set one of our properties. So the property we're going to set, let's set a scalar parameter value. And the scalar parameter value we're going to start with is going to be an easy one. Let's start with brightness. Okay, and the value is going to be, rather than 1, we're going to use our brightness variable, which is why we created it. We're going to plug this in. And this is where we need to set, this is where there's that disconnect that Rusty was talking about in this case. Our exposed variable to the designers is called brightness, but it also turns out the one that's on the material is also called brightness. So if you sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a different way from retrieving the name of the parameter than just typing it in? Because if you just, type stuff out is where you make mistakes. Is there a way where you can actually get the name? Okay.
Usually what the one that you'll see most, I don't think you can just copy it here. We can try it. Let's try it. We're going to right click copy there. Yeah, no, that copies the value. So what you'll see most people do, and sorry, go back to that. If you go back to the parent material, what you'll see a lot of people do is they will come in here to the parent material, which is our fog card, and they will, over here for brightness, where is it? Here. They will literally come in here and copy this. The reason being they don't want to make any of the typos that you're talking about. So they'll copy that and paste that in. I don't know. I have yet to see any dynamic way to get all of this stuff on the fly, but that is the safe way. That seems to be a best practice thing. All right, let's compile this, save it, and let's see if we're even up and running. Okay, so we have our material, we have our fog color, and theoretically we have our brightness connected. So if this is working, actually it can't be connected because it's defaulting to 0. Let's see here. Let's go back to our fog card base brightness. Let's default this to 1 and compile it. Oh, actually it is working. Okay, so let's see here. When we take a look at this, we've got, man, it sure is. Hold on a second. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. Okay, that way we can see this a little better. Okay, so we have our brightness of 1. As we change this, you can see it's changing here in the viewport now, just by scrubbing this, which is great. So literally at this point, all we have to do is a lot of, you could call it tedious work, but we basically need to do a bunch of these. Okay, so we need to do one of these for each of our materials. And what you, I don't know what way to dynamically do that, but anyways, so we got brightness, And then if we go back to our fog card material, we have, what's our other ones? We've got noise contrast. That is a great example, by the way. You can see I misspelled noise contrast here. So copy pasting fixes it, but I should also fix this in the base to actually be contrast instead of contrast it.
Are you repeating this anywhere? So it would be worth putting the names and materials in like a data asset or something, so you could just iterate over it.
Yes, that is a worthy conversation. I don't know about a data asset or versus, for example, a material set, maybe.
Yeah.
So, but actually, I just realized that I don't actually want to change the name of this. And the reason is I think I might be using this somewhere else. So that's why we're going to go with the copy paste for now. And for the purpose of like showing, getting this demo set up, we'll go there. And then let's do the color. I'm not gonna bore you all to death with copying and pasting a bunch of these. Basically, at this point, it's literally copy paste a bunch of these. Okay, and then the easiest thing is you just connect them up. Double click, pull down your node, same thing, and then you just go through and you copy paste in all your names and the values. Okay, you want to set your defaults. However, for the purpose of the tutorial though, it is at least worth dragging out and showing that you, in addition to setting scalar parameters, you can set color parameters or vector parameter values. So the vector parameter value is a little bit different than the linear color we passed in. So in this one, we want to get our fog color, I believe it was called. Fog color. So we'll pass that one in here. And then we're going to connect in our fog color. And now we have our fog color. Okay, so when we compile this, a bunch of these others are going to, they're going to break us. We should look at what our noise contrast defaults to in our, it defaults to 1. So we should set our noise contrast to default to 1. When we compile and save this and we go back to our, our fog color is white. So this is cool. So we can now change our fog color. This is the goal we were trying to get to. But we've also broken a brightness defaults to 1. Oh, because we haven't connected in our noise contrast. So our noise contrast, we didn't actually connect in our variable. So that's noise contrast. Okay. Fade distance. Noise fade distance. We'll add these in just to not break us, and noise size X. Noise size X. Connect these in. Okay. So let's double check our defaults for these two. Noise fade distance. And that is going to be somewhere. Edge fade. Here it is. Default. That is a crazy default value. 9647.33 repeating, of course. That is not what I wanted to do. I wanted the default. There we go. Default. And also, just for cleanliness, we should probably set this default to a whole number. It's worth mentioning. Noise size X. Noise size X defaults to 0.5. Y is 0.5. So X is 0.5. Y is 0.5. Compile and save that. And then when we go back, now you can see we're getting to a point where I can start to sculpt this fog to do what I want it to do. So I can bring back the brightness, because what I want is I want this fog fall off to happen. If this was over here, I want this fog to kind of, we're basically going to delete we can delete these guys. We're going to pull this in. And what I can do is I can now change this back to more towards the blue tones and actually do what I wanted to do. I should probably match the color that's in here right now as a starting point. So let's figure out what that is. That color is, we are just going to copy it. And just so we know, our brightness here is 2 and our noise contrast is also 2. So when we go back now to our level, we can paste this into our card, which is here. Paste this, brightness 2, noise contrast 2, and that will theoretically match what we had once we get all of the rest of our settings. Whoa. Once we get all the rest of our settings kind of going. So what this does is this now makes it so that I can take this and then duplicate it and duplicate it again. And then if I want this to fade out as we travel further away, I can, you know, pull back the brightness. So it's just a little bit less as we go. And then we can obviously, we can rotate it, we can change the settings, etc. So effectively, the whole point here is what we're doing is we are taking this single card, which has a single material instance on it, and we're making it so that we can add in any card and we can customize this. This also means now that, for example, in some of our other levels, the fog in the background is not blue. It's more of a greenish color once we get into kind of the more green areas. And so this provides the flexibility when we're creating a bunch of actors and instances in the level to be able to set it and sculpt the look that we want. It is worth calling out that this just moves the bloat problem. What do I mean by that? Well, so now now what we have is we have we have a bunch of cards on the right side here that are all controlled by a single material instance. What that means is if I want to change, if I decide as the director or the art director for the project that, you know what, blue is not working, we want green fog. If I open up this fog and I change this to a green color, now when I go back to the level, every single cloud piece on the right has been changed to green. It's very simple to make broad sweeping changes. Fog's too dense, fog's not noisy enough, the puffs are too small. Very easy. That's what the material instance across a broad number of assets gets us. However, on the left, if I want to change these to green now, I have to pick every single one of them. I have to go through here. Let me hide this one because this is, so I have to pick each of these. The good news is I can shift click them, but I do have to find them all, and then I have to change them all to green at the same time. So on one hand, you have one material that is applied to everything for broad sweeping changes, or you have the flexibility where then you have to, oh, hold on, I gotta finish that other thought. One material does do broad sweeping changes, but if you want individual control, you have to make multiple materials. And then you have the bloat of multiple material assets versus one material that is dynamically set with multiple assets, actors in the scene that you then have to manage all the actors. So we are moving where the bloat is on an as needed basis based on what makes sense for what we're doing in the level. And I think what you will end up using will change depending on what you're working on and the overall context. And I just thought it was worth showing you all how that works. So that's actually probably one of our fastest tutorials. I didn't have a lot of other stuff to go through as far as covering in this particular case, unless anybody had any questions. What'd you all think of that?
Yeah, it's a quick, nice little bite-sized tutorial, and it does raise an issue of planning what you're trying to do and take the decision early on. Is there really no workaround to have locked parameters that you could? Yeah, I don't know. Is there no workaround to having like some parameters that you can change to all of them and having some that I don't know. I don't know how to explain this, but
No, I know what you're saying. So here, let me help you out. There's a fallback here. Okay, and what I mean by there's a fallback here is there's a couple things that we could do to kind of get the best of both worlds. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So right now, our fog color is determined by, if we look at our fog card material, this is our fog color, right? What we could do is we could add in a tint. Let me make sure this is connected. Yeah, okay, cool. So let's duplicate this right now. Okay, and I'm gonna call this fog tint instead. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is you have to decide how you're gonna do this, whether you're gonna add, you're gonna subtract, you're gonna multiply or whatever. For now, let's do fog color is 0. If I add it and then saturate it, hold on, can we just tint this? Let's see, there may be a tint. Layer blend, tint. No, that's not what I want. Hue saturation, hue shift, here we go. Hue shift. Okay, and then this texture, can we connect this in? Okay. And then let's take this and plug this into our emissive color. Okay, so right now, let's see if we change this, if this works. It does. Okay, cool. Okay, so what we could do is we could set up the material, and there's different ways to do this. Okay, so let's talk through this. First, let's get back to Rusty's question at the base. Well, don't forget, just because we've created this as a card, it does still sit on top of a material instance. And so if we wanted to, let's just say that globally, we wanted to change all of our material, all of our fogs, so that they were, you know, twice as dense. Well, or no, that doesn't work because we're overriding it. Let me give you a better example. If we wanted to dramatically, like if we made a change to this base material, whether it be we wanted to, let's say we wanted to add a new thing like density or something like that. If we make this change to this material, that will propagate to all of the material instance, as well as our actors that are creating material instances dynamically. So it's not like we've lost all of the ability to have the flexibility of a material instance, in that if we update the base material, those updates will propagate. Now, if we want to be able to change fog colors globally and then have a tint on top of it if we plan it, or for example, right now our brightness is just a single parameter. But rather than using brightness, what if we use brightness plus brightness offset? Well, brightness offset. Okay, and then the brightness is actually determined, we'll set this to 0, and we take this and we add the two together. Okay, and then rather than exposing brightness, we expose brightness offset. What that will do is that means that we have the power to control the brightness over all of them together. So let's go ahead and do that in our fog card base. So right now we are controlling brightness here. Let's change this to brightness offset. Okay, compile that. And then let's take, we gotta apply our changes to our fog card. This brightness example is gonna be an easier one to grok. And then also let's do tint. We'll do the tint as well. Where did we, fog color, fog tint. Okay, compile. All right, so now when we look at our level, this changes the behavior slightly. But let's take our brightness. And actually, this is a great example of what we were talking about before as far as do the names have to match. Notice we still call this brightness. It shouldn't be. It should be, if we want to, I like to keep these things 1-to-1. So let's go ahead and rename this to brightness offset. Okay, through some smart planning, basically. Now we have the ability where if I want each of these cards, if I want this to be a gradating brightness, so this one is going to be full 1. The second one, we're going to bring down the offset. And then this third one, we'll bring that down too. And that didn't change because brightness offset. Did I spell that wrong? Oh. It's because we're adding. And I think what we want to do... Hold on a second. First off, brightness offset should start at 0, not 1. That's part of the problem. Okay, and then the brightness offset, if we reset this to 0. I love these on-the-fly questions that keep me on my toes. Okay, so brightness offset, that's no offset. We're gonna take this one and dial it back. See how it's dimming? Because we're going negative, which means we're subtracting. So we effectively have this fall off that's happening. This is full brightness. This is, let's say, well, that was the wrong one. Let's go minus 0.5, minus 0.75. Can't pick this middle one, of course. There we go. Minus, yeah. We can go -1, -2, I guess. Okay, so we have this fall off that's happening. Now, what happens is if we get back to our fog, I think it's this one. I want to make sure we have the right one. We have our material instance. And we also have, we've also set our fog color. Wait a minute. I thought we renamed that to fog tint, didn't we? Oh, we didn't rename it in here. We would want to rename this to fog tint. Let's call this fog tint real quick. Tint. Okay, fog tint. And in here, in our level, if we change our fog tint, we can still change the color of the fog for each of these individually. Like maybe it goes deeper greens as we go, for example. Okay, so we got kind of 3 different greens. Now that we've done that though, we do still have the ability to change our base material. So if we take this fog color and we change the brightness of this, it changes all of them. So even though we have an offset, it's gonna blow all of them out. If I want to be able to control all of them, if I'm like, you know, overall the fog is a little bit light, let's just double it. When I do that, it'll blow them all out. And that also means I can change the base color as well. So if the base color is like pink, for example, this tint is gonna have a different effect on a pink than it does on a green or a white. So by changing our material, there is a way that you can kind of plan for the ability to have control over the base and then offset it. I think it makes sense for things like, especially scalar parameters. However, I don't know, we did it with the tint as an example. I don't know if you would have to do some smart thinking here because of the way tint works to kind of rebase it to 0 and then offset from there. I don't know if you would want to do it with tint, but I could see that making sense with things like brightness, contrast, etc. Does that help answer that question?
It does. It does. Yeah, still you need to plan ahead very carefully, and it's going to depend on the use case. But yeah, it seems like you need to really, when you're building the material, you need to understand what you're going to be using it for. But yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah, and as a general heads up. I mean, this is a great example where I think some of the planning comes from the experience of having done this a bunch of times. But as an example, like I don't plan all this stuff. I don't have all this stuff in my head, I guess is what I'm saying. And what I mean by that is this is a fantastic example. Almost every game I've ever worked on is its own unique beast. And yes, a lot of the stuff I've done in previous games is applicable and helps. However, they usually all require their own stuff. And as a result of that, in this particular case, this is a great example. I got in, I was used to using material instances, etc. But because this game is so different, because we are basically sculpting the environment one asset at a time, and we're cheating the lighting, and we're cheating all these things, what I do is, even though I haven't planned it out, I am still watching for certain gotchas. And if I find myself repeating something over and over again, that is usually a signal for me to find a better way. And so when I started duplicating these cards and I realized that I had to go through and edit each one individually, in order to change the color, I had to create multiple material instances. I was like, wait, that is not going to be fun for future me. And so that's why I grabbed this as a quick tutorial moment for y'all. Cool. Any other questions for the stream?
Nope.
All right. Very cool.
Nope.
For everybody else, we're going to hang out and talk a little bit of game stuff here after this. But in the meantime, for everybody else who's watching this after the fact, game is live. Helping test, helping play is awesome. It's the only way that the game is going to get better. We are working hard at the next phase, which is a massive update to the game and the way everything works. We are getting closer. As always, thank you for helping support the channel. Thanks for helping spread the word. Very much appreciate it. My name's Kevin. I hope you all have an amazing day, week, weekend, etc. And we will catch you on the next one. Take it easy.